Hey, this is Fleeks. Last time in Spell Chess we played some 1600s. Let's now keep it going and move up to challenging the 1700s. See if we can get a game here. Here we go. We get the white pieces. Got the game out of the lobby, which usually I wouldn't do, but we do want a particular range for these demonstration purposes. We get the right move, c6. Good start from our opponent. There's a couple different moves we could play here. We could bring the bishop, which we've done in previous videos. Let's push this pawn. This is my usual repertoire, and as we start moving up the rating range, we will want to know more opening theory. The reason for this is to take control of the center before they have this threat of bringing the bishop out. Now that the bishop can come to b4, we have to shut that down with c3. We have a nice center, some space to develop our pieces, and this is looking like a pretty regular opening so far. Our next step is going to be maybe bring the knight, maybe bring the bishop. Bishop e2 also a move. In either case, we have ideas of pointing toward the king side. Okay, that's also a good move. We don't really want to open things up so much and help black develop, so let's clamp down with e5, preventing the knight from coming out. I'm quite happy about getting an e5 because now bishop d3. Wow, we do see f6. Okay. Let's see here. We have bishop e2 with the idea of coming for this check. The disadvantage is that it blocks our queen in a bit. I don't want to take, because then we just help black develop. Their queen is coming to attack our king on the central file. That's not good. Let's try the bishop. This is quite a threat because interposition does not work at all in spell chess. We would just jump and take. Okay, black shuts that down. I don't mind. Still not going to take here. Don't want the knight to come out. Let's bring our knight out, and so if black takes the pawn, we will jump in with our knight. We do also have to develop our queen side. How are we going to do that? Sometimes in spell chess you can actually bring the knight over to the edge and maybe even sacrifice here for some attacks, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We can also start to bring the knight this way, probably after we get the bishop out. Okay, that's actually pretty good from our opponent. They want to take away our knight's outpost on the central square. Let's bring a bishop in to back that up. So one way or another, if they take, we should get a minor piece straight in the center of the board. They actually do have f5. Oh, no, I don't think it's a very good idea, because then we get either a bishop or our knight in. That is also a move. Takes twice is really bad because the queen just takes. Let's not have any of that. Now we need to decide between backing up here and backing up along the original diagonal. If we go here, I'm not really sure what we're aiming at, except continuing to guard this pawn. And it has the advantage as well of shutting down, oops, helps if I actually draw the arrow, attacks toward our king if we choose to castle. So let's back up this way. When one side tries to open up the side of the board where the other is castled, it can be very scary for the side that is castled, because your pieces might not be around to block, and your king is just wiggling back and forth, and often things go very wrong from there. So if we choose to castle, which I'm not saying we're going to, because even with some cover it can be scary, but if we were to castle, I think we would probably survive. I think our next step is probably going to be to get this knight out of the way and then give this check. Ooh, okay. That's pretty good from our opponent, lining up on our king. So taking the pawn is really not a good idea. It just helps with the attack on our king. We could just move the knight out of the way, sort of abandoning this pawn. I think that check is probably worth it. We do have a bit of a disadvantage of blocking in this knight. Can also castle? Let's castle. I think with this nice shield we'll be fine, and with Black's king sort of stuck among all these pieces that are not well developed, the rook could be pretty good. We might see this, which I would very much welcome, because then we just jump our knight out of the way, and then the bishop is coming, so that would be very, very good for white. And now we are actually prepared to take here, and we can plant some pieces in the center, we can put the rook on e1, and target the king and the queen, and that is well worth letting Black develop here. Oh, wait, actually, then the knight can come here, which could be slightly annoying. Okay, well, it turns out we don't have to think about that quite yet. This doesn't do a great deal. The bishop wants to come here, but I'm not concerned. Let's put the rook on the central file, aligning with the queen and the king. And soon we will be threatening to take and put the bishop somewhere, and then the jump threats will be significant. Okay, and our opponent is sort of helping with our plan. Oh, they're very much helping with our plan. Watch this diagonal toward the king. This diagonal, as well as the other toward f7, are very important in spell chess, especially when bishops are on the board. Because we can now put a bishop there and hit the king. We can even do it with a freeze, because there is no way for Black to interpose anything here or take our bishop, or save the king, because the king is frozen, can't run away. So Black must counter freeze. And while they are busy dealing with the threat of jumping the knight and taking, we are going to take here, and we are very likely going to pick up some good material, hopefully the queen. I think we will probably win the queen here. This freeze is so powerful because Black doesn't have any counter threat on our significant pieces. Our king is very safe. Their bishops are not at all developed. And our queen is also totally safe, and in fact, light square bishop is frozen, so they just have no counter threats at all, which means we are going to have a free hand next turn. In fact, we could even try to think about going for a mating attack, but no, we don't have quite enough. So let's just go ahead with our plan, take the pawn, hitting the king, hitting the queen. Oh, actually, hitting the queen in a normal chess way as well. That's probably a lot easier. Let's take the queen. This is looking pretty good. Oh, I did forget to calculate this, but it's fine. We would just take and promote, and we'd be very much winning. So we're hitting the bishop, hitting the rook via the jump threat. The king can't take, not that you would really want to Ballin' Cloud in this position, I don't think, because of this. Oh, that's interesting. They might have meant to move here. I suspect they did, because the rook there is just hanging. Let's get some tempo. We're going to take here. Oh, should I freeze? No, because we can't include all of this stuff in the freeze. Yeah, got to take there. Oh, and now the central file. The rook really achieves its goal. We take the king. We win the game. GG to our opponent. Very good opening. Let's go over that again. So c6, excellent response. That is my recommended response to e4, because it prevents the bishop from coming here, as we saw become a problem later in the game. This is my standard response, actually, to this opening setup. And this is a very high-level setup from both sides here. So very good start from our opponent. This also very common move. There are alternatives. You can also play this if you really want to restrict the bishop, but I'm very happy to get e5 in. And our opponent's maybe thematic issue was pushing too many pawns and not developing the pieces. As Black in spell chess, it really does take some patience to develop your pieces, but you do have to make steady incremental progress. So instead of pushing this pawn, you want to start bringing out some pieces here. Ideally, you can prepare to get the bishop coming onto the king side. You could bring the knight, but you really need to get some piece activity at some point. As we said during the game, don't want to take this pawn, because then this is just good for Black. So we develop patiently, bring a bunch of pieces. I think this was probably a bridge too far because the diagonal is now available after we save our bishop and bring the knight. So instead, I probably would have put maybe the bishop here, because then there's, whoops, that's not how I moves, more defense on the central square that white is contesting. And white really does not want to take because black's development just becomes very good. And then black can maybe follow up with bringing the knight, maybe even jump to here and start an attack. And I think black would have been in a lot better shape if they had brought pieces instead of pushing a lot of pawns. Putting the queen on the central file is a common idea, but we were careful to block up the center with the pawn, keeping the bishop here until we castle away. This was probably too slow. Instead, I probably would have brought the knight, or even the bishop here to try to crack open the center. But cracking open the center at this point is probably just good for white due to black's king still being here. So maybe I would bring the knight, try to use the rook and the queen, as well as maybe some pawns and minor pieces if you can manage to maneuver them, to attack the king via the jump threat. Right here, we basically had a free move. We put our rook on the central file, and whoops, I clicked twice. And this was probably the fatal mistake. Definitely the first serious mistake from black was allowing our bishop in with this freeze. There's really nothing you can do here. You have to freeze the bishop. Anything else, if you... I can't even think of anything else to try to go here with this threat. We would just jump and take. Doesn't work at all. And because we had frozen both the queen and the king, this is actually a very common idea in Spellchess, is to freeze both the king and the queen, or multiple important pieces, so that we can attack both of them at once. You can't save one when you're doing the counter freeze. Black had to counter freeze. They couldn't move the queen away to safety, and there's just nothing developed enough to get in the way of this bishop or to take it. So we had two threats here, the jump threat, the normal threat. We took the queen, and here I think we might have had a mate. Oh, no, not quite. Not quite. And the reason is that we would have to freeze our own pawn. There's no way to freeze only the king, because you can't freeze on a square outside the board. So if we try to freeze the king, we also hit our pawn, and that does not work. If we could freeze only the king, I think this would be over, because we would have this, and this would be very, very hard to stop. In any case, we're definitely winning. We're up a queen, and after retakes, we took the king. King would have had to take, and then we would take the rook, and we're up a queen and a rook for a jump, and this rook's very active, this knight's coming, the queen's coming. It's over. GG, let's see if we can get another. All right, here we go. This time we have the black pieces. Our opponent opens with the standard e4. We will block up this diagonal with c6. And now they bring the queen out. They're probably going to follow up with the bishop to create some sort of Scholar's Mate attack. Let's definitely prevent that by blocking this other diagonal as well. Oh, okay. We are now able to threaten their king on diagonals. That is a completely clear diagonal. So very much an opportunity to freeze as much as possible. Why not? And give a check. Interposing does not help at all, because whatever they interpose, we would just jump it and take. They have to counter freeze. And we will have a free hand to develop, maybe jump in and take something. Although, okay, now that they've interposed, we can't jump and take, because they would just retake and we'd have spent our jump and we would not be able to take the king. So that would not help. Instead, let's perhaps bring a queen We can back up our bishop so that if takes, we can jump. We can also consider a sort of scissor attack. I don't think the scissor really works here, though, because the king can just step out of the way, and we don't have a follow-up, and then our queen and bishop are actually hanging. So that would not be any good. Let's bring the queen over here, then. And, of course, if takes, there goes the king. If takes our queen, we take the king. And so they're going to have to interpose or remove the king, I guess. And then we are going to take the rook. Actually, there is one thing to be careful of, which is that after taking our jump, we'll be on cooldown, and there's this. How much of a problem would that have been? It actually could have been a problem. We'll analyze that after the game. But turns out it has not actually happened. Well, not yet. We could still jump and take this. So let's think about it. We take, if pawn takes bishop, then we just start taking all the material on white's home rank. But if this, then we can't jump and take, so we have to move the king, or I guess we can interpose, and then we lose the rook. And then we can start giving some attacks. It's pretty scary. I don't think I really want to go for that. Let's just attack the king again via the jump of the e-pawn. So our bishop is not takeable at the moment. Probably going to see this, or maybe the queen. And if the queen attacks our queen, then we'll have to use the bishop to save them both, so that the pawn can't take the bishop and the queen can't jump and take. That's all totally fine. We should now pull our bishop back so that we don't lose it. We also have to be careful that we don't get our queen trapped, but I think we have plenty of retreat squares if the pawns start pushing. Could have maybe gone here, tried to pressure the bishop, but then there's maybe ideas of forks that I'd rather not have to think about. Okay, our queen's being attacked. That's fine. Unfortunately, we can't give this check due to the bishop. So that's off limits. But we'll just come back to the sort of home square in a lot of these black opening setups. We're playing a little bit passively, but white's position is definitely not great with the king having to be pushed up to the second rank. Our plan is, I think, going to be to push this pawn and bring the bishop out. Oh, okay. Now we can start to attack white's pawns. We can go here, pressuring this. It does have the disadvantage of blocking up this pawn, but we can be patient. We can also bring our knight and clamp down on any queen attack ideas. Probably going to see pawn push, at which point we could consider jumping in there for the fork. White would be able to interpose. Oh, okay. We don't have to jump at all. We can just take. Let's take. King either comes up, in which case king is in increasingly big trouble, or it goes back and we get even more tempo when we take the rook. A big question is, do I take the rook? Go for just the immediate material or try for more? Well, actually, if we take the rook, which we will, we still have the threat of more, so that just seems pretty straightforward. We will have to watch out that if too many of these pieces move, our queen could be pressured by the rook via the jump threat. Okay, so that's one of them. We can play it safe and just take the pawn. Seems like a good idea. And then we also cut off the king's escape via the jump threat. So now when we do eventually get this in, that's pretty much just going to be game over. Is that an issue? I don't think so. I definitely don't want to take, because then white could start getting counterplay. Let's just prepare to bring our pieces to attack the king. Now, once we do get the bishop to a6, white does have the ability to jump the king and take, but then we'll take with the queen. Is that a big issue? Oh, yeah, it actually is, because after this takes... Oh, no, it is check at the end. So we aren't immediately getting in serious trouble. but I don't love the idea of having white's queen supported by a pawn near our king. So let's take with this pawn, reason being that perhaps once these pieces move, we can bring in our rook as well to threaten white's king. White's king still can't get away, actually, because our queen's still cutting off this rank. Ah, okay, white wants to take our rook, but that's not an issue. We're going to give this check. Pretty much have to jump and take. Oh, wow. Because if you don't, this square is cut off, and there's just all sorts of checks, like this, for example. And now it's about over, because there is no normal king move that will save the king. You have to interpose. If you interpose without a freeze, then we're going to jump in and take the king. Now all these pieces are really blocking in white's king. So white has to freeze, or the king will hang. But then we're going to counter freeze and give... Oh, that's a move. Oh, that's actually kind of tricky, because if we counter freeze the king, the bishop can jump and take. That overrides check. So that would be jolly terrible. Let's not allow that. We'll counter freeze the bishop. And I think white's actually still in the same position after this. This knight move isn't strictly necessary because the bishop's frozen, but sort of a belt and suspenders approach, making sure we cannot possibly cease to pay attention and hang our king. But yeah, it's over. There was nothing white could do there. Just to show the alternative, all these king moves except this are illegal. Here we jump and take, and if either of these pieces interposes, we also jump that, and we take. Oops, no, we don't mouse slip and hang our queen. That would not do it. But you get the idea. Let's flip through the game briefly. This is queen f3. It's playable. You do see some strong players play this, but I think you probably want to start like in normal chess with the minor pieces or taking control of the center with pawns. So either this or this are what I recommend. We brought this pawn out to take any concern away from bishop c4 threats. White could have played this, and in fact this is a totally legitimate setup. We would have gone here, bolstering the f7 pawn through the jump of the d7 pawn, but we didn't see that. Instead, white pushed this pawn, which was definitely a serious mistake, because, well, actually, was it a mistake? It might not have been. Definitely inaccurate, because you really don't want to allow this sort of check. But we couldn't really make anything out of it due to not having so much piece activity. It was pretty early in the game for this to work, and yeah, the white king just has too much space. Our queen can't come in here for the classic scissor trap. So we didn't accomplish the most work here, but getting the king pushed up to e2 is definitely a win for us. Now, let's actually analyze, because I don't know for sure whether this would have been good. So if we had taken here, sort of being greedy, of course if white takes our bishop, then we just start munching up the material, and these checks are coming, and this is falling, and things are very good for black. But white can be aggressive with this. This is a fork. Notice how our jump's on cooldown, having just used to take the rook. So if we try to save our rook, hang the king, it's no good. We could... All right, let's just play around. Let's play around and think about this. White would probably jump and take. Now, their jump will be on cooldown, so they cannot take our king, but our knight is hit. So in this position, we could start getting some material. Take the knight, they take our knight. But with our king getting checked, I don't think I like this at all. We can also take here, which is probably better because now it's our jump that's ready while theirs is not. They cannot take here because now our jump is back. We'd have made 2 moves, 1, 2, without the jump, and it would be ready to take the king. So instead, white would have to save the king, probably If you go here, then we just take the knight and we're doing very well. If here, then we have this check, and again the queen cuts off the escape. Oh, actually, no. We have to be real careful. In this position, the check is okay, but if we do it one more time, we hang our king. Let's just demonstrate this. Now, white's jump is back, and helps if I actually click the right jump. Our king would hang, which would be very, very bad indeed. Have continued the checking. We would have had to move our king or do this, but that doesn't. It's just terrible. It throws away a knight, and we're in the same predicament. So we would have had to push the king up, and then this is happening, or our knight is hanging, and this is falling, and no, I don't think I like this at all. So no, I think it was definitely the right call to not take that rook. It's very hard to keep the material and our king. So I think we made the right play here. Saving our queen, saving the bishop. This was maybe a little bit passive, so I'm not claiming we won the game or anything by getting this bishop check, but it's a trade-off. We're a little bit more passive, but white's king is in a dubious position. They tickled our queen a bit. We saved the queen. And then this was definitely where it started to go wrong for white. Losing this pawn and the rook. Yeah, from this point, very, very tough. The alternative, I thought, was either this or this. Oh, back it up and go here. If we jump and take, now they can't do this because it is check, and this isn't an immediate capture of our king. So king somewhere, could even interpose, takes. Now, that was only one move without the jump, so this is an option. Still can't take here. We could try to freeze the queen and then follow up with an attack on the king. I don't actually know off the top of my head whether this will work. It might. So there's no attacks on our king, and we are going to start attacking the king. I don't know, here. Now this is blocked, and our jump is back. So I think we would win the queen here, but very, very tricky. A really safe approach here would have been to bring the knight out, and then there just aren't these threats at all, and then we're still threatening this, and we just patiently develop, and it would have been a fine game, probably. But after we got the fork without using our jump, we just start taking all the material on the queen side. This is a nice wall. And whenever the opposing king gets sort of pushed up into the center, you just throw all your pieces at them, and it's very likely to be mating at some point. Probably would have been a better try to do this, because then the king can run back, but we're going to just keep checking, and it's looking pretty scary, and black is up a jump with all this material on the board, as well as the rook, so black's definitely doing very well here. Yeah, this was a nice try, but nothing to be done there. Good game to our opponent. I think we're going to call it there for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.